16. All right. This is Abraham and Sarai having a promise that they will have a child. This is huge. All right. They are they are old in age and they're gonna have a child. God's gonna promise them a child, and they're gonna pretty much question God like we're old in age. Like Sarai is actually gonna laugh. All right. And also take note that their names are still Sarai and Abram. It's not Sarah and Abraham yet. All right. So we're gonna see this happen, and I believe in this chapter we're gonna see their names change. So we did chapter 15 where God shows Abraham the land. All right. It's gonna be the promised land, which is the land of Israel today. Okay. And he's gonna tell him, hey, your descendants are gonna be here. And he's like, my descendants. And I look up in the sky, and the amount of stars, that's how many descendants you're gonna have, which is a lot. All right, you're gonna have more descendants than the dust on the ground. Like you're gonna have so many descendants. So starting from Abraham, hey, there's a huge line about to be a lineage about to be born. Like it's a huge line of descendants. So remember before that we have Noah. Noah comes out of the ark. All right, how's it going? Thank you for being on this evening. All right, so we had Noah, and they came off the ark, and then they have their three sons, and then they have they're married and they have kids, and we did the whole genealogy, and now we're at Abraham. All right, so we're about to build the descendants of Abraham. All right, thank you for being on, by the way. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a few minutes and we'll get started on Genesis chapter 16. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to put on here. All right, thank you for being on. I'll just start reading chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So this is a huge thing in the Bible. All right, they have a maidservant whose name was Hagar. Now Sarai is up in age. All right, so Sarai said to Abram, "See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her." And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. So God gives Abraham a promise, like, hey, you're gonna have children. And Sarai's like, well, I'm old in age, so God's definitely not talking about having children from me. Like maybe a Hagar, a maidservant. So Abraham ends up laying with Hagar and having a baby. All right, so this is Sarai trying to interpret God's message, and yeah, so this is this is Sarai trying to interpret God's message. How's it going? Please don't forget to subscribe and be notified when I do the lives. I really enjoy doing a lot of lives, so you'll see as time goes. All right, so he's like, hey, God promised you a child. We have Hagar, our maidservant. Like, why don't you lay with her and have a child? And so it says here, please go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her. And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. Then Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar's maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. All right. How's it going? Thank you very much. J Brills 13. Thank you very much for being on. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and be notified. All right, when I do lives. Thank you very much. If you have any comments or anything. Richard 15. I think I've seen you on here before. Richard 15. How you doing? So yeah, so this is a huge thing going on here. Now, something huge that you can look up is there's a war going on right now, between Abraham's descendants, which is going to be the first child that was born from Hagar and the first child being born from Sarai, all right, whose name is Sarah now. All right, and we're going to see that as we go on right here, okay? Then Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, she was Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram, be his wife, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So he went into Hagar, and she conceived. Hagar conceived. All right. Yeah, we're going to see... I'm going to point it out as we go. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despising her. Then Sarai said to Abram, my wrong being up upon you, I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between you and me. So Sarai is now despised, like, man, you actually conceived a child with our maidservant? So Abram said to Sarai, indeed, your maid is your hand to do her as you please. And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from the presence. So it's like, hey, flee. All right. Now the angel of the Lord found her by the spring of the water in the wilderness, by the spring on way to Shur. And he said, Hagar. So the Lord is talking to Hagar here. All right. Sarai's maid, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. So Hagar gets, is it? We're reading a book of Genesis, chapter 16. Uh, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. Then the angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they will not be counted for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, so here we go. Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael. All right, so we have Ishmael. So we're about to have Ishmael here. So remember, God made Abraham a promise, like, hey, you will have a child. And he's like, okay, I'm going to have a child with Sarah. But Sarah sees it as, no, it couldn't possibly be about me. So he gives her handmaid, Hagar, and they conceive. And they have a child, and the child's going to be named Ishmael. So it's like, hey, so technically Ishmael is the firstborn, but that's not really what God intended it to be. All right. How you doing, Elijah Ballermino? How's it going? Thank you for being on. Here we go. Because you shall bear a son, you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has your affliction. He shall be a wild man. So Ishmael is going to be a wild man. So that's the description of Ishmael, a wild man. All right. And every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. He's going to dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees. For she said, have I also here seen him who sees him? Therefore the well was called Beer Lahai Roi. Observe it, between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son whom Hagar bore Ishmael. All right, so we have Ishmael. Now another thing I want to see here is she said, I have also seen him. Let me see here. Every man's hand he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Then she shall name Lord. Therefore was called between Kadesh and Bered. So he puts Kadesh and Bered. All right, so that's something I want to look up real quick. All right. Therefore, the well was called Beer. Observe it, is between Kadesh and Bered. So I want to look that up real quick. Kadesh and Bered. How you doing? Thank you for being on. Hey, thank you for being on again. All right, give me 1 second. Kadesh. Let me see. Between. So I'm just gonna look this up real quick. Between Kadesh and Bered. All right, here we go. It's located between Kadesh and Bered, as mentioned. As I mentioned, the story of Hagar, Ishmael, gloves are being. Let me see here. Let me see. Between Kadesh and Bered. Okay, let me see if I can find an image. I just want to look up a location on here. How you doing? Thank you very much for being on. I'm trying to figure out where is this located. Kadesh and Bered. So we have all right, so it's Egypt and Israel, right? So we're right here in the middle of Egypt and Israel. We have Kadesh. All right, so it's right before Israel. All right. Okay, so that's where we're at. Arabia and Israel, like right in between. That's what it says on here on the map. All right. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees, for I have also here seen him who sees me. Therefore the well was called Bered, answer between Kadesh and Bered. So there's a well right there, okay? So it's like right between Arabia and Israel. That's what it says on here. Straits of Tyran. All right. Therefore, so Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son who Hagar bore Ishmael. All right, so we have Ishmael. How you doing? Thank you very much for being on. I really appreciate it. All right, here we go. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. So Abram was 86 years old. Abram, 86 years old. All right. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, so 13 years later, God talks to Abram again. All right, to Abram. All right. And it says here, Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless, and I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly. So again, we're on the promise again. Then Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. So here's the promise of father of many nations, and that is Abraham. All right, Abraham, the father of many nations. So he's going to build descendants from Abraham. No longer shall your name be called Abram. So here we're going to change Abram's name. But your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. So Abram's name now gets changed to Abraham. All right. So finally, his name is changed to Abraham. On chapter 17, I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you, and your descendants after you and their generations, for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and your descendants after you. So they're making a covenant. Also, I give to you and your descendants after you, and the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said to Abram, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout your generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. So here's a covenant being made. So we're making a covenant here. All right. This is the covenant of the circumcision. So Abraham, so he's like, all right, we're about to make a covenant here. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised. So it's like from Abraham up, circumcision. All right. So that's the children of Israel. That's what's going to happen. All right. And this is going to continue throughout history. This should actually continue to today as well. All right. Like, hey, who's the children of Israel? It's like, oh, they follow the circumcision, because they're ancestors and all the way throughout. All right. And that's how we should be able to tell who is part of Abraham's descendants. All right. And you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. So that's going to be the sign. Somebody said, how you doing? Elijah, thank you for being on. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. So that's the covenant. 8 days, circumcision. All right. And that's going to be the sign of the covenant. And it's going to be passed on throughout generations. Among you shall be circumcised every child male in your generations, he who is born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendants. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. So pretty much everybody from here on is going to know about God, and it's going to be a covenant. How you doing? Okay. And uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh or the foreskin, that person shall be cut off from the people. He has broken my covenant. So if they don't, they will be cut off. Then God said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. So Sarai's name is going to be changed. All right. Sarai's name is going to be changed. I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. King of people shall be from her. So we're going to build from Sarah as well. All right, I'm gonna start. Thank you very much for being on.